do that. You should have just let it go. You should have
I'm
just started
sorry.
it.
I'm
No, it's
sorry. Well,
fine. I'm never
we're
gonna be
live
upset
now.
about that. Yeah. So hi guys.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Unready room. Yeah, we're I didn't think of a clever opening because again, we're the Unready room.
That's
But
what we
we're
do.
all in our submarines recreating Run Silent, Run Deep right now and getting ready to talk about Strange New Worlds, Memento Mori, the one of the very few Latin phrases they haven't yet used as an episode title to this point. So,
Surprised at
right?
that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading Keith DeCandido's review, and he had a good point that like pretty much every televised series has used this as a title at some point, and he's genuinely shocked it's gone this long in Star Trek without using it. Yeah,
56 years. Pretty good
yeah,
record.
amazing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm Dan Gunther. With me, of course, Brandi Jackola. Brandi, how are you doing today?
Hi. I'm Aces or Ices.
Who
She
talks
sounded
like
so
that?
She sounded so Australian on that one
Yeah,
word. So cute.
I love it. Um, yeah. Oh, we'll talk about Chapel. We'll talk about everybody this week because yeah.
Mhm.
Man. Uh yeah, so yeah, we're talking about Memento Mori, episode 4 of season 1 of Strange New Worlds. And I don't know, this Strange New Worlds thing is pretty good.
Yeah, it's
It's
all right.
it's not bad.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, I'll say.
Pretty all right. Yeah.
For sure. What a week for sci-fi fans. What else happened this week? I don't know. We're just here to talk about Star Trek. I don't know. Did anything else big have? Okay, Obi-Wan Kenobi was pretty darn good too, but
I
yeah.
consider that fantasy, not science fiction.
Oh, there you go. Science fantasy. Or
Well, there's not a
well,
whole lot of
I don't know.
science in it, let's be honest.
That's true. It's not even set in the future.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I just I think of it as fantasy, which is not putting it down in any way. I just think
No,
it
not
fits
at
that
all.
genre better. So,
Yeah. I was going to call it speculative fiction, but it's not because it's not in the future. It's a long time ago in a galaxy. So you're not, yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Space opera fantasy, maybe.
Yep,
I
that
don't know.
too.
Something like that. But yeah. Oh, yeah. And Stranger Things is out apparently. I'm a season or two behind on that. Whoops. Uh,
Yeah, well, the episodes this season are like feature length. Oh my
oh,
god, I
really?
don't have time for like 90-minute episodes. What are you doing to me, Stranger Things?
Yeah. I think, yeah, we watched season 2, but we haven't watched season 3. And it's just been on our list forever. And then now season 4's come out, and we're like, oh, whoops. So, hmm. Gotta get on that. There's things other than Star Trek, Dan. Gotta watch it. Except, of course, we're watching Quantum Leap again and Frasier of all things again. I I don't know why. It's like comforting '90s stuff that you're like, okay, this is. I feel safe. I don't know, something. That's weird,
Yeah.
but we're not here to talk about all that stuff. We're here to talk about Strange New Worlds, which is also kind of a return to classic um, stuff in a way. So, yeah, all right. Nostalgia is in.
Well,
uh,
there's nostalgia and then there's toxic nostalgia.
oh, yes, no, for sure. I do make that distinction for sure.
Right.
Sometimes Frasier goes into toxic nostalgia, by the way, but anyway.
It was never a show I watched, so I have no frame of reference.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think David Hyde Pierce is just one of my favorite people. That's about it. But anyway, again, Star Trek. David Hyde Pierce on Star Trek. Who would he play? That's
Mm.
interesting. Anyway. Yeah, so Memento Mori, episode 4. We've got kind of the long awaited, it's 4 episodes in, come on. Backstory of Lon Noonien Singh. And to start with, what I think is kind of cool is we've got the like obvious thing that we all talked about when we first learned the character's name and we're like, what's that all about? But there's more to this character than just that. And 4 episodes in, we know way more about her recent past with the Gorn than we do about her familial connections and any kind of drama surrounding that. We've gotten a little bit, but I find it interesting that these characters aren't just these kind of like archetype monoliths. They're like fully fleshed out people, and
Yeah.
the exploration of that aspect of her backstory wasn't even on our radar when they introduced the character, but that's what we know the most about. I don't know, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree, because I said this to you after we finished the show last week. I said that this episode was the one that made me understand and appreciate La'an. And I'm very lucky that I had the opportunity to have screeners so that I could come to that episode and understand and appreciate the character, where up to that point I had not. And now I
Mm-hmm.
can carry that into discussions now by because of course I rewatch every episode as it drops for the public. And so I've been able to appreciate things about her. Let me just rub my microphone a little bit. Is that okay? We make terrible
An
noises.
ASMR channel now. Sorry.
So yes, sorry about that, guys. They're just I really love that I can appreciate her roles in those first 3 episodes more than I did when I first watched these episodes. So, because this one, I just didn't get her. I just didn't get her. And then this episode happened, and I'm like, okay, there are things here with which I can identify and I can appreciate and I can understand why
Mm-hmm.
she is the way she is. So,
Yeah.
and I can't really blame her either.
Yeah, I really appreciate that insight into her character. I mean, the obvious trauma, and the things that we got kind of hints about in the first episode, and kind of a brief explanation about how she doesn't do well with people. Basically, she's not a team player,
Mhm.
as a I don't mean that to sound insulting, but like she's not a team player on the at the outset, right? It's something she has to work at. It's something that she has to actively try to be, rather than just coming naturally to a lot of people. And to see where that comes from and how deeply this is in her psyche is it's heartbreaking. And I really started to feel for her for the first time, really. There's the way she pushes people away is very much the text of the character for the first few episodes. And that's very intentional, that I think the audience, the people around her on the ship, and the audience watching her feel alienated from her and don't
Mhm.
quite know what to make of her. And through Spock in this episode, interestingly, is where we kind of get that connection to her, and that emotional connection to her, if that makes sense.
Yes, I agree with all of those things, and I cried many times during this episode for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, this one's a crier, you guys, this one's a crier,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of hard stuff.
Absolutely. I do also just want to acknowledge the discussion in the chat. David Hyde Pierce as a Kelpian would be amazing.
Please,
Y'all are awesome.
pretty
That would
please.
make so much sense. I love it.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Somebody call
Absolutely.
Paramount Plus.
So yeah, Puget Sound is coming up in the comments, which is also another link to Frasier, because it takes place in Seattle. Weird. But the pin that Lon has and doesn't wear, but considers or contemplates at the beginning of the episode for the SS Puget Sound as a part of this Starfleet Remembrance Day. I thought that was really interesting. And Remembrance Day is what we celebrate we memorialize in Canada on November 11th every year. In the States, I believe it's Veterans Day, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
It is, but it's also Memorial Day.
okay, yeah, and in Canada, the tradition, and the UK, the tradition is to wear a poppy, which represents the remembrance of soldiers who have died. So the wearing of these pins really felt familiar to me, and I was like, I can absolutely see that coming out as a Starfleet tradition. And it's something that I really appreciated about this episode, because sometimes, not all the time, Star Trek has done this good and not so good sometimes. We see Starfleet ships destroyed and people die, and a lot of times, again, not all the time, but sometimes it's just kind of a plot point that is quickly forgotten, kind of thing. Um, and it's nice to see there's that acknowledgement here, and that there's an actual ceremony involved and that kind of thing. So that was cool. I love this adding of Starfleet Remembrance Day to the canon here.
Yeah, I like that too. And I feel like the timing of this episode, as in when it dropped, is not accidental because
Mm-hmm.
this coming Monday is Memorial Day.
Yeah, Bruce and I spoke
So,
about that too. We were
yeah.
wondering how planned that was, like how, like, that's very, very great timing. Regardless of whether it was planned or not, that's
Yeah.
great.
It's pretty cool. Also with the pins, Fansets is going to make a set of those. There's 12 of them. 'Cause I got to see a picture of them on Twitter,
Wow.
and they're gonna make all 12, and you know I'm gonna buy all 12 of them. But,
Yeah.
the interesting thing is that you can't really see anybody else's pins. Like, we know Spock is wearing one. I would lay money that it's for Discovery. It
Hmm.
better be for Discovery, is basically what I'm thinking.
This is something Bruce and I were kind of trying to deduce um from stills and photos and stuff, because TrekCore has a great article where they show all the pins and stuff, and they have very distinctive colors around them.
Mhm.
And the one that Pike is wearing is definitely Discovery. Pike's definitely says USS Discovery, and Spock's looks like it's that same gold color. So I think Pike and Spock are both wearing Discovery, and the rest are wearing a variety of, there's the Farragut, there's the Shenzhou, I saw is one of them,
Mhm.
and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, okay. So Punk rock zoologist. Pike's was for Discovery. I think someone found on Twitter that Spock's pin was for the USS Congo. So it might have been. We weren't certain about Spock. We couldn't find where it was like dead on enough. Because I think the Congos might have been white and the Discoveries was gold, and it was hard to tell. So
Mm.
that's interesting. Um,
Somebody at some point is gonna confirm that or deny it. I just, somebody who knows, just putting it out into the universe, whoever knows for real, like,
mhm.
who's involved with the show, whoever knows for real what pin Spock was wearing, please let us know.
Yeah.
It isn't as important to me as knowing what his insides look like, so come on, get on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I remember reading before the episode came out that Pike's was Discovery for sure. Um, which, like, if I'm gonna pick one of those pins that I want to get, it would be the Discovery one, and
Mhm,
then maybe
same.
the Shenzhou. That would be cool too. But
Yeah, Discovery's
yeah,
number 1 on the list for me too, so
hmm, for sure. Yeah. So Starfleet Remembrance Day, they're all commemorating it. I always, my brain wants to go to the word celebrate, but that's not the right word. Not supposed to. They're commemorating that day. All but La'an, she can't quite bring herself to publicly put the pin on, which gets commented on, but they have freedom of expression and it gets dropped, kind of thing. So okay, but it is something that is noticed. So, um, oh, and my headphones got unplugged.
Oh,
I
no.
think I can. Oh, there we go. I can hear you. I can hear now.
Okay, good. Okay, ooh,
My voice
yeah.
started sounding really far away. I'm like, whoa, okay. Um, So that's, kind of the first indication, of course, and this colony ship that we know is the one she was on, and obviously the details she talked about in a previous episode. We're going to learn more about that because this colony they're going to deliver supplies to, deliver equipment to, uh, has been attacked and everyone's missing. Again, another planet they beam down to where everyone's gone. I'm noticing a trend here. It's interesting. But they quickly find out that it's the Gorn because La'an recognizes first from this group, they recognize the description by this young girl and then sees the ship as it's closing into attack and realizes we've got Gorn. So um, I'm going to sing the praises of Christina Chong here because I am feeling everything she's feeling, the looks she's giving, the dread when she hears the clicking, and then when she's frozen looking out the window. She's incredible. She's so good.
Yes. She is so good, and I was so excited for this episode to happen because I knew anyone who wasn't getting La'an yet would see this episode and more than likely get it because Christina Chong's a great actor, and
Mhm.
she is really great at this particular character. I've seen her actually, I think the other thing I saw her on was an episode of Doctor Who, but anyway,
Mhm.
regardless of that, she's she's just okay, everybody in this episode is bringing like their A plus 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 game.
Mhm.
Not just their regular A game, but like leveled up. Like all the performances are just like, "Oh my god." So,
Yeah.
yeah, and she is no exception. She has a lot that she has to convey in this episode and it's brilliant. She's brilliant.
There was, and I wish I could remember the moment in the episode it happened, but I turned to Nikki at one point and I said, "There is nobody on this cast that I don't love. Like I love this entire cast." And I there's never been, people in previous Treks that I hated or think like, "Oh man." But there's some characters and some actors that I've been like, they're okay. Not my favorite character. I love everybody on this cast. Like, I
Mhm.
cannot wait to go to a convention and get 8x10s signed by each and every one of these people because I love them all so much. They're so great.
Yeah, it's never gonna happen for me because
Oh,
they're not gonna
we'll
come
make it
here.
happen. I
They're not gonna
know.
come here. So,
We'll make it happen for you, Brandy. Some will kidnap you and take you somewhere. Yeah.
well,
So
if
you
only
can
it were
get
that
snapped.
easy. If
Oh,
only it
but
were that
yeah,
easy.
I love all of them. Let's talk a little bit about Hemmer because
Yes.
I have thoughts, and Bruce Horak is amazing, and he's from Calgary, a city in my home province of Alberta. I say he's local, but like Calgary's like a 9.5 hour drive for me. So
Still local. Still local. It's
exactly.
in the province. It's local.
Absolutely. He's great, and one of our local public access radio stations, CKUA, had an interview with him a few days ago, and I was like, "Oh, I get to hear about Star Trek on local radio. It's so cool." And hear from this fan or hear as a fan from this actor who's a main character on the show, and uh, the pride in his voice when he talks about being a visually impaired actor playing a blind character, just that obvious progression that we get in Star Trek, right? Where you
Mhm.
had Geordie LaForge representing visually impaired people, and now you have an actual visually impaired actor representing that on the show. I love it. I think that's so cool. And on top of that, he's just the nicest guy, like the actor. The
Yes.
character, he's got a shell we're gonna break through, I'm sure, but the actor's really, really nice and sounds awesome.
Yes, love the guy. I haven't heard any interviews or anything like that, but just seeing what he looks like outside of the makeup, there's just How do I explain this in words? It would be so easy if I could just show everyone what was in my brain. Um, that's not the way it works. There's something in his countenance that just tells me this is someone special and good. So,
Hmm.
and when I find that in just a picture, and if I ever meet that person in real life, I've never been wrong. I've never been wrong once when I
Yeah,
get that feeling about someone, even from just a picture. So, it's just, I just really think he's cool. And I'm just so
absolutely.
happy that he's on the show.
Yeah, I'm stoked for him and his character, and the character of Hemmer, as people are mentioning in the comments, he's pretty grumpy, and I really enjoyed his portrayal though, and I loved the interplay between him and Uhura right from the get go, where he asks her to describe what the unit they're going to be working on is, and she's like, it's an air filter, and he's like, oh, you know, annoyed
He
with that.
writes it off. He makes an assumption. "Oh, the cadets never read the source material." And she gets this look on her face like, "Oh, hell no." And then she spits out all this information, and
Yep.
he's like, "Fine, but it's gonna take more than that to impress me." She's like, "Challenge accepted."
Yeah, but I also don't believe him. He's impressed
Mhm.
already. He's
Oh, he
impressed.
is. He is, but he's grumpy, and so he's not gonna show it.
Absolutely. I loved her whole, like, she rattles off the specifications of it, how it's different than previous models, and the improve puts it in the historical context of the manufacture of these devices, and then says, which means it filters air.
Mhm.
I love it. She's so great.
Yep.
Oh.
Never underestimate Uhura.
Okay, her portrayal here, especially in this episode, she brings a level of competence to the character that is something we've always seen from Uhura, but like
Mhm.
pairs it with this youthful inexperience a little bit, but
Yes.
also kind of wide-eyedness, if that makes sense. Like she's a little, but it's paired with that genius that she has as well. It's a really interesting balancing act she has here, and she does a great job.
She does do a great job, and she has a hard job because she's A, playing this iconic character that has existed for 56 years, and also B, she is having to play a younger version, and they've given the added complication of this Uhura has no idea what she wants to be when she grows up.
Hmm. Which
And
is, yeah, it's doubly difficult because you know what she's going to be when she grows up, and the temptation, I think, both on the writing side and the acting side, is to play that up so much that that's an
mhm,
inevitable thing. It's a hard thing to sell that, like, an audience watching this won't necessarily believe that she's going to, definitely end up where she ends up. I love that there's still that bit of a, I mean, we know where she's going to end up, obviously, but she doesn't know that, or she shouldn't know that, and the people around her shouldn't know that. And so threading that needle of making the audience believe that she's in this place, I'm probably not putting it in the right words, but I really appreciate her performance in that.
yes, I agree completely. And I love how she compares engineering to linguistics,
Hmm.
and that it's both learning how seemingly unconnected systems communicate. And I'm
Hmm.
like, "Yeah, yeah, very interesting." Yeah, I
Makes
love the way
sense.
she sees things. She's just fun to watch, and
Yeah.
I am loving her seeing her journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've got the Gorn attack. Enterprise can't raise her shields because she's got the walkway connecting the two ships, rescuing the crew off there. The Gorn destroy that ship and damage the Enterprise, and La'an and Number One are there in that area, and there's other crew members and civilians. And I think, like, very tragically, we learn, especially, that this young girl that she was just speaking with has died here as well. That was a, like, how do I put it? It was like, oh, this is for real. Okay, like, not a big fan of using characters that way, but it's still just a splash of cold water in the face that, like, the stakes here are serious and you are in terrible danger right now. That I think that was very effective in kind of setting the tone of the episode right away here.
Yes, I appreciate that they didn't show us a child's body,
Yes,
because
me
that would have
too.
been a step way too far. So
Absolutely.
there was that. And the thing is that nobody on the bridge yet understands what La'an already knows. And so Number One is telling her, you've got to get to the bridge
Mm-hmm.
because you're, they're going to need you. And, it's at this point in the episode that I say every time, everybody on this ship that survives owes their lives to La'an. They all would have been destroyed had it not been for her.
Mm-hmm.
And by association, Spock. So the two of them saved everybody.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So from this point, we've got the brown dwarf and the black hole. We've got the game of cat and mouse in the inside the brown dwarf, and I'm seeing all of the comparisons to previous Star Trek. Yeah, absolutely. So we've got Matthew here, part disaster from TNG, part balance of terror, and part wrath of Khan. All awesome. Definitely influences there. Uhura and Hammer in the cargo bay totally reminded me of Crusher and LaForge in
Mhm.
Disaster. We've got the submarine battle, balance of terror. There were several pacing moments in the episode where I was like, oh, they referenced Balance of Terror. They went back to that episode and wrote out storyboards based on that episode for this episode. I don't know that for sure, but boy, does that feel like it in a lot of parts here. And of course, the battle in the Mutara Nebula from Wrath of Khan. Absolutely, all things that are informing this. This was so just a tour de force for uh, Star Trek combat, which not my favorite part of Star Trek, but still, when it's done well, it's impressive. It's really, really good here.
Yeah, well, it's not all just mindless pew pew
Mm-hmm.
and photon torpedoes. It is a strategy game.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I also got the feelings of Hunt for Red October and Das Boot.
Yep.
So, yeah, also, if you haven't seen Das Boot, please do. It will
Yeah.
wreck you, but it's really good.
Oh, Patrick. I'm so glad somebody else said that too, because yes, I
Oh.
very specifically when they were taking the Enterprise down, and Pike said, "Oh, she'll hold up. The Enterprise will hold up." I got that. There's a great. I haven't watched it in ages, but one of my favorite episodes where Cisco says, "We're going to take the Defiant down into the atmosphere of the gas giant." And everybody kind of looks at him, and he says, "I know she wasn't built for it, but I helped design this ship. She'll hold up." And I just got that vibe here as well. That was great. So yes, thank you. I'm glad someone else saw that. That's awesome.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah. Run Silent, Run Deep, of course, another
Mhm.
touchstone, I think. And I just a scene that I want to go back and watch again because I just love it so much is Ortegas saying dive, dive, dive. I love that. I don't know. I'm
Mhm.
a sucker for that. That was so great.
Yes, I love that too. There were a few nautical terms she was spitting out, so
Hmm.
I appreciated that very much. I'm gonna
I
cough, so I'm
love
gonna mute my.
Oh, no worries. I loved the recurring thing as well of somebody would explain why something is really dangerous, and then Pike would say, "Great idea, let's do that." They're like,
Yeah,
"No, no,
hence
that's."
hence my middle name. It's like, "Go deeper into the gas giant. Great idea." That is not what I suggested.
There's so many great little moments like that, and the looks that people are
Mhm.
giving. Ortegas is shooting like these bewildered, like, "What are you thinking?" looks, and then they flip it around at one point, where Ortegas makes just maybe one too many sarcastic comments about what Pike's planning, and he just kind of gives this like, "Are you kidding me?" look towards her, like, "Could you stop, please?"
Yeah.
I
I'm
love that.
doing the best I can with what I've got. Uh, yeah, it's all the facial expressions, like, all the facial expressions, great, and also Pike's tortured moments are see, Anson Mount is really great at communicating things without saying a word because of many things. Like, he's a very talented actor. He also did spend an entire season of the terrible Marvel show Inhumans being Black Bolt, who cannot speak lest he kill somebody or destroy
Mhm.
the planet or whatever. You know, just the sound of his voice is extremely powerful. So yeah, he knows how to communicate without saying a word, and boy, does he do that in this episode. Like, the words coming out of his mouth aren't necessarily what's going on with his face during certain
Mhm.
times. So, because he's the captain and he's got to get everybody out of this. He is not going to lose anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, those moments too where he is showing exemplary Starfleet captainness as well,
Mhm.
where um he does make the hard decisions. Like, he sacrifices members of his crew as much as it tears him up inside, and as much as he knows those lives are gone, you know. But he makes the decision first to put those lives in danger to save the rest of the ship, and then in order to save the ship to sacrifice those lives as well, which is a really cold and callous way of putting what he had to do. But it's what happened, and what, as a Starfleet captain, he has to do to ensure the
Mm.
survival of the hundreds that remain aboard the ship, right? And those moments, again, what he's saying on his face when he gives the order to seal the bulkheads,
Mm.
and it's an order he has to give. And you see that when, from Kyle's perspective, the door's closing and the deck's gone as the door closes. So if he hadn't have given that order when he did, that would have been much more catastrophic.
Yeah.
That was brutal, and incredible performance by Anson Mount here.
Oh yeah, it was one of those moments where, okay, yeah, I cried during that. Okay,
Yeah.
the first time I watched it, it was all just like, oh, and then the second time I watched it, I was way more emotional about it because I knew what was going to happen, and so I was paying more attention to other things. And then the third time that I watched it, I'm just like through half the episode. So,
Mhm.
but and Spock tells him, "You made the logical choice," and he says, "Why doesn't it feel that way?" And he said
Yeah.
he says basically, "It's because you value life."
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, that was brutal, and
mhm.
just an amazing piece of drama as well.
Yeah, well, and the thing is that we see Kyle walking with this guy down one of the corridors early in the episode before everything goes to hell,
Mhm.
and then you see them running towards the bulkhead, and his friend is injured, and he's trying to get him there, and his friend basically throws him through the bulkhead as it's closing so that he'll survive, and
Yeah.
then just gets sucked out into space.
Oh, yeah. I've only watched the episode the one time, and it's so powerful, and I really can't wait to watch it again, and just really take in all those moments, because oh man, brutal. Well, so let's talk about number one for a little bit, because she's kind of sidelined for most of the episode, and which gives space for La'an to kind of take her place as number one on the bridge. Um, I was a little disappointed we don't get more number one in the middle of this situation, just because I'm curious to see her kind of in those situations a little bit. But what we do get with her in this episode is really interesting as well. And so Sickbay has been hit and has lost power as well. And they're, employing some old fashioned medicine and that kind of thing, and she's about to go under for surgery, and there's just enough plasma left for that procedure, and also this other crewman needs the plasma as well. And just before she goes under, number one orders the doctor to use the plasma for the other crew member and not for her. um and she, in that moment, her face as she gives that order and then goes under, on her face that she's like, it's very likely I'm not going to wake up again. So
Hmm.
she kind of gives one last look and then goes under. It's just like, whoa, again, communicating so much in a look without dialogue there. So good. And there's another moment we'll get to where there's no dialogue that's so perfect as well.
Yes. Well, and the great thing is, this is another thing that I didn't mention. We're already past this point in the story, but when La'an does finally get to the bridge and she explains that it's the Gorn, and Pike is like, "Well, there haven't been that many sightings, blah blah blah," and then she just shouts, "It's the Gorn, sir!" And
Mm-hmm.
then she's like, "This is what they do. They make you use up your resources. They hobble you, and he's listening." He's listening, he's paying attention, and she explains the situation, and she explains their strategy, and he says, "Yeah, that's a smart way to do that. That's very smart." And now he is on Team La'an, which
Mm-hmm.
is not to say that he wasn't on before, but he was being the optimistic, "We're gonna win this," and she's like, "You can't, and here's why." And he gets it. He listens to her, he takes her advice, and because of that, they all survive. Again, La'an saving everybody's lives, but also Pike, how many captains would have just written her off?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Probably far more than than should be. But Pike listens to his people. This is just another one of those things that makes him a great captain, and
Yeah.
my favorite captain.
Ooh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, that's another incredible moment for sure. And I do love that like he takes that time to realize that she has the experience and the knowledge about this, that you know like you said at the beginning, everyone who survived owes their lives to La'an and to Pike. But without both of those people, where they were at the time, this would have turned out much differently. And that's really cool for sure. Oh, I think we should talk about Spike.
The fan
Wow,
fiction slash fiction name.
I don't even know why I said that, because I was gonna say Spock and La'an, so I don't know where the heck that came from.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Anson Mount himself has accidentally called himself Spike, so you're good.
All right. So yeah, Spock and La'an, they end up taking a shuttlecraft to kind of scout out what's going on, right? To see where the Gorn are, because they're doing the run silent thing. And sorry, I'm just seeing the comments now. All right.
They're
And
arguing
they,
about plasma versus blood, so yeah.
oh yeah. So they see the Gorn ships kind of flashing these lights at each other, and through a mind meld, La'an remembers what her brother had discovered, which is this way they communicate, the language, and what these different signals mean. Um, let's talk about this mind meld, because there is a lot going on here, and not just for La'an, but for Spock as well, because we hear a familiar voice, and La'an begins to sense that there's a reason why Spock is kind of empathizing with what's going on with her and her memories of her brother. And she realizes that Spock has lost somebody as well. And we get that reference to Michael Burnham. And the look on Spock's face is really interesting, because there's a number of things going on here.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, emotionally, there's a lot going on with Spock, because he doesn't want to reveal all of this and have all these emotions come up again. But also, I think there's just a little bit of panic behind his eyes, because this is very classified and you are not supposed to know about this. And it's very loaded when he says something along the lines of, we need to end this mind meld now.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is that he does not want to do this mind meld in the first place, and he is countering every argument that she's putting forward as to why she needs him to do this mind meld. And he's getting kind of petulant while he's doing that, and I'm like, oh, it's not that he's worried about what he's going to see in her mind, it's that he's worried about something from his mind's going to link through, because that link goes both ways. Link goes
Mm.
both ways. And so I was totally unsurprised that she figured that out. But when I did hear that, and then I heard Michael's voice, I'm like, ah! So yeah, that was another big cry moment for me, especially, and she starts to say, well, there's no records in Starfleet, and he says, no, there are not, and he just cuts her right off.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, she sacrificed herself for you too, didn't she? And he says, I think it's time we end this mind meld. He's
Yeah.
like, he's done. He's
Yeah.
done. Yeah. And then when they come out of the mind meld, she's got tears coming down her face, but he does too. And then I'm just crying more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Um, the other interesting thing, of course, to come out of this is La'an's plan, which is
Yes.
to fake a signal from the smaller Gorn ship to say that humans have infiltrated the ship and taken over, knowing that they'll want to cull the weak and
Mm-hmm.
destroy that ship. And I loved Spock, like, La'an's like, I didn't think you'd agree to this plan. It is a good plan. Like, he's just like, I'm on board. This is good. We just mind melded. I know, like, it's a good plan. Um, and yeah, it works. That was
Mm-hmm.
impressive. And then again, the wordless. Well, she's giving dialogue as well, but the look on La'an's face, just that kind of cold. She doesn't blink when she observes this other ship being destroyed, and there's a lot going on there as well
Mm-hmm.
behind the eyes when she sees that happen.
Yeah.
And that's scary. There's a scary aspect to this. There's a desire for retribution there as well that really comes through, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's like she said, the Gorn see humans as walking feed bags. They might as well not even be sentient.
Mm-hmm.
And sh she was dehumanized, basically, by her experience there. And God only knows what else she went through, because her mind did set that point where it's like, "Nope, we're not going any further than this. You do not need to remember this." And that was, the end when the mind meld, ended up being concluded.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even wanna know. I don't even wanna know what else she went through, because
Yeah.
obviously it was so horrifying that her mind just blocked it off for time and all eternity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, they return to the ship, and basically, again, with the really cool maneuvers and using stellar phenomena and stuff, I loved the idea of basically using the plasma streamer from the brown dwarf to the black hole and using that to slingshot around and escape, and of course using the unit from the cargo bay as a decoy as well. All of that, just the strategy and the working that out. And again, more moments of like, well, that would be crazy, and Pike's like, okay, that's what we're doing, and they're like, oh
Mhm.
my god, what is the matter with you? I love it. All of that is so much fun.
Yeah, and now there's a Pike maneuver, so
Mm-hmm. And somebody in the comments I saw pointed out basically the Pike maneuver is kind of the opposite of the Picard maneuver. You know, the Picard maneuver, you go to warp and appear in two places at once, and the Pike maneuver, you go up against the oh my goodness, the event
accretion disk,
horizon.
event
Yeah, the
horizon.
accretion disk, and appear to be stopped right at the event horizon there. So interesting. That's kind of cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. I also loved, somebody pointed out, was the escape of the Enterprise from the black hole an homage to the opening credits of Lower Decks. I kind of love that.
Yeah, that's my headcanon now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it.
That works for me. And as somebody pointed out earlier, and this actually also occurred to me, this was way early in the chat. Whoever you are, speak up when I say this. But someone in the chat said, Uhura going through from department to department reminds me of Rutherford going
Yes,
through all the different departments.
I saw that too. Yeah, absolutely. I want to
and
see.
and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I want to see her change department colors too as she goes, because she wore yellow early on in TOS as well. So you know, she's worn more than just red.
This is true. This is true. And of course, Rutherford had his own encounter with the Gorn.
Yes, Guard wedding. um, TJ says that was TJ saying that. So excellent. Thank you for that.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Um, yes, I had that thought as well. I love what the movie Interstellar has done for the portrayal of black holes in media. Yes, the more realistic, as far as we know, as to the best of our knowledge to know at the moment, look of black holes with that really we first saw in Interstellar, the Christopher Nolan film. I love that that's kind of become the baseline for singularities and black holes and stuff. I think that looks really cool.
Never seen it, but I will take your word for it.
Gorgeous visuals in that film, and yeah. Yum Yum Podcast in with their early rating. I appreciate it. I appreciate the rating. No Sam Kirk, 0 out of 10. Fair enough. Yeah,
What are you gonna do?
absolutely.
You know, can't argue with that.
Yeah. I'm going to highlight this one as well. I love the idea of Sam Kirk just chilling out in his quarters, being oblivious to the action happening around him. Just, sleeping away with it. Yeah, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Briefly, number one and Chapel and Mabenga as well, with the just some of that dialogue in sickbay. Again, it might have been this moment. It might have been with Jess Bush as Chapel. That might have been when I said I think I love everybody on this cast. She's just delightful. Like, I
Mm.
love her. There's a photo that she put up on Instagram of one of those. There's like a V-shaped like
Yes.
thing in sick bay, and she's just like relaxing in it between takes.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I want that to be a publicity photo for this show. I like that is such a great picture. And I know it's just on her Instagram, and I'm like, oh, I want that to be like an 8x10 they offer at conventions to get signed, because I think that's just the coolest picture. Um,
Love it.
and it just totally encapsulates her personality. I think, as far as I know, both as Jess Bush, but also as Nurse Chapel, because I she's so awesome. I'm just gonna gush every time.
That's fine. There's so much to gush over with this
Hmm.
cast. I mean, there isn't a weak link at all.
Yeah, it really seems that way. Who says things like that? Me.
Yeah. Who talks like that? Well, and see, that's the thing. She's trying to explain the pain. She says, "I hear it's like it's giving birth out your mouth."
Who says things like that? Oh man, I love it. Oh man. So yeah, the other little bit of, again, just wordless acting that I love is when number one wakes up from surgery after the surgery's over, and the look on her face immediately is like, did they disobey my orders? Like, why am I awake? And she looks down and sees the IV running into her, and she, you can see she's kind of starting to build up a little bit of a head of steam, and she looks over and sees it connected to Dr. Mbenga, and he just glances down and smiles, and she just smiles back and lays back down. And I love that scene so much. I love that so much is communicated. There's such an up and down of emotion in that scene without a word spoken. It's just so perfect. And also, Babs as Dr. Mbenga, again, just another amazing part of this cast.
Yep, every single one of them. Every
Mm-hmm.
single one of them.
Yeah, for
Okay, so
sure.
the part that really kills me, and this makes me cry a lot too, just because of the way it's done, is when they've done the Pike maneuver, and they're trying to get in touch with the main cargo bay, get in touch with Hemmer and Uhura, and they're not getting an answer. And Pike's like way up front with his back to everybody because he doesn't want them to see what's going on his face. He
Mm-hmm.
does not want anyone to see because he's already past his limit on losing people, and he's just like, no, I can't. I just can't deal with this. And he's he just kind of gives up. You see the moment that he just is defeated, and he says to La'an to send a recovery team, and then you hear Uhura's voice, and the relief that floods through his face
Yeah.
and even his body. It's like his knees buckle for a second.
Yeah. Uh,
And oh, just and of course they're okay. And well, not okay. I mean, Hemmer's got a broken hand, and he's gonna whine about that for a while.
yeah. I really appreciate that moment as well. And they've lost 7 crew members already, and the 3 civilians as well. And you can tell, just like, not one more, not
Mhm.
not one single person more is he going to, you know, yeah. And I love that moment. It does this thing that sometimes gets a little annoying, where we as the audience know that they're okay, but they stretch it
Mhm.
out just those extra few seconds for the I don't mind it so much because it's less played for the audience reaction here as it is for, as you say, the war going on Pike's face, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's what it's played for. Um, and the other thing that I appreciate about it is, I hate when shows do that, when you see the people are okay. You see as an audience that they've come through it or whatever, and then it jumps to the wherever. Are you there? What's going on? And then they do that like thing.
Mhm.
The season premiere of season 2 of Discovery, I loved the episode. I thought it was really great overall, but they did that in that where Burnham rescues Pike as they're plummeting towards the thing, and we see her fire the thrusters and stop before hitting the ground, and then it goes to the bridge, and Oo and Detmer are like waiting, and what's going on? What's going on? And they said, I've got him. And they're like, yay. And it's like, okay, yeah, we saw a couple seconds ago. It's fine. I do like that they don't do that here, where they like reveal it to the audience and then have that weird dramatic moment
Mhm.
where it's like, this isn't, yeah. So, but
Yeah.
it went
But
on maybe 2 seconds longer than, but
yeah.
that's okay.
Well, that's it's fine. What you should do in situations like that, I'm not a writer, director, producer, or anything like that, so this is, all BS if you want it to be. But what you do in that is that you cut away before the rescue, and then you go to the
Exactly.
people who are wondering, and then you see the people who are wondering get the news, and yay! That's how you do that. That's how you do that.
Exactly. Which is kind of what they did in this episode, because we didn't
Yeah.
see, like, once the cable's starting to fail there, we don't see anything after that until we hear their voices. Now we know that Uhura survives and Hemmer's probably going to survive, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. It wasn't for
Yeah,
us. It was for Pike. Pike
absolutely.
didn't know. Nobody on the
Yeah,
bridge knew. Nobody else knew. So
for
that's
sure.
what it was for. And that's fine.
um, hmm. What have we not talked about yet that we should bring up with regards to this episode?
Um okay, so minibus 3. No, sorry, it's Finibus. I just want to say minibus. So yeah, again, getting aliens vibes because they're
Mm-hmm.
sent to go check this place out. There's nobody there. They beam down. They've got an atmospheric processor even. I mean, this place has atmospheric processors. Hello, LV-426. And it had just a very aliens feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just creeping me out in a good way. In a good way. But it was, because everything was dark, and why did someone leave a dog behind,
Mm-hmm.
and why didn't they let that poor dog out? Just
Yeah. And
at least beam him up.
yeah, and the blood of the colonists gathered and then taken away at some point, like,
Mhm.
very gruesome, very chilling, and yeah, I really appreciated the atmospheric vibes of that as well, for sure.
Yeah, and
Um,
before like, the first time I watched this episode, even before, um, there was any confirmation from La'an, when they were still down on the planet and they saw these people and not people, but just the emptiness of it and then all the blood, and I'm like, "This is gonna be Gorn, isn't it?"
mhm.
Because why wouldn't it be? And the one thing that I prayed for, and they delivered, was that we wouldn't see the Gorn.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
I agree. I love the from their perspective, complete mystery of them at this point, with the
Mhm.
exception of La'an, of course. But the fact that they're this faceless enemy that's just described as monsters. That's the only description we get of them. It's kind of, if you were to go back in time, to the 1960s, Balance of Terror, when the Romulans were this enemy that they fought this war with a century earlier, and no human or Romulan had ever seen the other, as far as anybody knew. I think that would have been really interesting. Of course, you lose a lot of the meat of that episode, which is the bigotry
Mm.
and stuff. But it would have been interesting if that episode had ended like this one, with none of the crew having seen the Romulans yet, and then maybe in like season 2 or 3, it's like, wait, this enemy we've had like a couple episodes dealing with every season is related to the Vulcans? What? Like, how crazy cool would that have been? Um, but different kind of show, different, whatever. But um, I like that it's left here. There's still that faceless enemy. All we see is their ships, right? So, and the
Yeah.
aftermath of their attacks.
And the ships. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
terrifying. Like, the smaller
Yes.
ships that basically look like talons,
Mm-hmm.
and they're super maneuverable, and then that big old mothership comes in, and I'm like, my brain can't even make anything out of that. It's so alien and weird and doesn't make sense, and I loved that. I
Mhm.
loved it was something that was completely unlike anything I had seen before, and I still can't explain what it looked like.
Yeah,
It's
like, I
that
couldn't sit
weird.
down and draw it at all. Like, it's
No,
yeah,
it's crazy, magnificently done.
yeah. I also feel like the fine folks at Eagle Moss were watching this episode going, "Oh, man."
Yep. They're like, "We're gonna have to do that now."
Oh,
They
yeah.
have really good artists, though. They'll make it good. They'll make
Oh,
it good. I
absolutely.
do not know how you're gonna put a stand on that, though.
Yeah. I'm
You're
looking
gonna
forward to seeing.
Yeah, I look forward to the day where you put out that Gorn mothership.
Absolutely. Well, final thoughts on Memento Mori slash ratings for the episode, and this, of course, as always, goes for the folks in the comments as well.
Yeah, I this is my favorite episode so far of this season, and I've actually seen through episode 6 now, so that's saying something. And you know I don't pick favorites lightly.
Mhm,
But a this is just a tour de force for everybody in the show, really.
mhm.
And and I get so much Spock, so I love that. I loved seeing Spock at Ops.
Yeah, that
That
was
was
fun.
so great. He could probably just run any station on the bridge, we know this. But I appreciate the fact that they showed us, because other than Spock mentioning the burden of losing his sister is heavier every time he goes back into space, um, that's the only reference that we've had, and that we get this reference in this mind meld and see the emotions that are still connected to it. I
Mhm.
appreciated that. I
Yeah.
really appreciated that, and, just really appreciated this entire episode and their performances in it, and it's gets top marks for making me understand and appreciate La'an, and yeah, I give it, one giant what the hell pin is Spock wearing out of out of everything. It's just fantastic. It's so well done.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I really enjoyed this episode. I think it was my most enjoyable episode to watch of the season so far. I really appreciated that each character got a moment to shine, which is this is a pretty big ensemble cast, and they did a great job of giving each character meaningful moments, not just, I mean, meaningful defined however you want to define it, but like ones that really fit with their character and kind of gave you a little bit more of an appreciation of them and their characters. So I'm gonna give it, I think, 5 out of 5. um chapel quips. I think I couldn't decide between an Ortega's quip or a chapel quip, and I think those two need to have a quip off sometime.
Agree. I want to see that.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So with that said, next week we've got Spock Amok, which interesting episode title.
Got a lot
So
of Spock in it.
I feel like this is going to be a Brandi favorite, maybe, because of a lot of Spock, possibly.
I love me some Spock, so I never
Absolutely.
complain when I get a lot of Spock.
Well, when you want to talk about Spock and show off any really cool new Spock art you might have, where can people find you online to see that?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandywine12. That's where you'll see whatever episode of whatever I've done that I'm posting. This is a small version of the newest fan art. This is this young lady. Her name is Macy Parker, and she's Australian. She goes by the handle The Clumsy and Shy on Twitter, and she's magnificent. She's 17 years old,
Oh,
and she
wow.
draws like this. Yeah, she draws like this at 17. Can you imagine what she's gonna grow into? And so yeah, I she's done so many beardy Spocks for me, and I said, okay, well now we have new material. Let's get on the Sans beard Spock. So
Beautiful.
she's amazing. It's totally totally worth it getting a commission from her. She's just so good at what she does.
Amazing. Support artists. Do that. That's awesome.
Yes.
Oh, Yum Yum killing it with the comments tonight, by the way. Yeah, they need a Kobayashi Saru. Yes, love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can find me online on Twitter. I'm at Kurtrats. I'm also, of course, in the Positively Trek podcast that I do with Bruce Gibson. We have episodes coming out each week talking about the week's Star Trek news as well as whatever Star Trek is aired that week. Our episode on Memento Mori is coming out on Tuesday. And of course, we have fortnightly book club episodes as well, talking about books and comics. And in the most recent episode, the short stories from the Star Trek Explorer magazine, issue number 2. So yeah, anywhere where there's Star Trek fiction, we'll talk about it. So yeah. Thank you all so much for joining us again. We'll see you again very soon. And until then, live long and prosper, and have a great week, and enjoy all of the amazing Star Trek that we've been getting, and all of the amazing non-Star Trek that we've been getting as well. So
Too much